We'll be watching scary real-life events behind these memes. A worker in the sewage treatment plant discovered a human brain inside a catch basin. Authorities determined that it had not been there long and it had not come from a hospital or research lab. No DNA has been found.
"Oh, that's real nice" meme comes from an episode of the cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants, where Martin, a side character in the show, looks into a toilet bowl only to find a realistic-looking SpongeBob floating inside. The moment itself tied into the overall plot of that episode, but the meme that came out of it was meant to contrast someone doing an ordinary task like going to the toilet or clocking in at work with an unusual or disturbing discovery. And while most of the posts mentioned completely fictional events, a few instances of the meme format referenced real events that actually happened. This particular incident took place at the Bethlehem wastewater treatment plant on January 7, 2000. A worker named Scott Batchman had clocked into his night shift at around 11 p.m. when he noticed a pink, fleshy object while cleaning out a catch basin. He took it.
How would you know if it's only a pink, fleshy object? Who knows that it's the brain of something else?
Out and rinsed it off to get a clearer look. However, nothing could have prepared him for what that object turned out to be. Scott was holding one half of a human brain in his hand. It was a bit difficult to identify, but Scott's past work experience at a coroner's office allowed him to confirm that it was real and not a prop. He immediately contacted the authorities and handed it over to them. This discovery happened on a Friday night, so
like, imagine if you're the police officer just clocking in at a Friday night. It's soon to be Saturday, and suddenly someone shoves you half a human brain.
Proper analysis didn't happen until Monday. However, according to initial reports, the brain looked like it was fresh and had not been in the sewer system for very long. The situation became worse when it was sent over to a DNA lab for testing, which confirmed that it belonged to a person. Unfortunately, authorities had no matching DNA on record, making it impossible to determine whose brain it was. The treatment plant also received waste from 13 different municipalities, so they couldn't link it to a nearby missing person report either. The question now was, how did a piece of human brain end up in the sewer system in the first place?
That's scary.
One possible explanation the authorities considered was that it came from a medical cadaver, suggesting that a medical student might have flushed it down the drain either on purpose or somehow by accident. However, the lack of any major decomposition pointed to a much darker possibility. The brain likely came from the victim of a homicide, with the killer attempting to destroy evidence by dismembering the body and flushing the pieces down the toilet one by one. And
ew, that's gonna be so dark. Did they even found other body pieces? Or it's just only the brain?
Fortunately, it seems their plan worked as intended.
Because the brain is like more mushier than other parts of the body, so I think that it has the least survivability of being intact once flushed down the drain or something. But I don't know, it just survives, okay, that half brain.
The investigators were never able to link the discovery to any reported crimes, leaving the case an unsolved mystery to this day.
Oh, just like that? Nobody missing a brain or anything?
The traumatized Mr. Incredible meme depicts a normal-looking Mr. Incredible next to a haunting, uncanny version of him.
It's always
this
meme.
uses a before and after format to highlight how hidden context changes a person's perspective, where people who don't know see a surface-level image or phrase and remain blissfully ignorant, represented by a smiling Mr. Incredible. In contrast, people who know understand the dark, tragic, or disturbing reality behind the subject, represented by his hollow-eyed, traumatized face. This specific version of the meme refers to a silent tragedy that occurred in many parts of Mexico in the late 1980s, and the cause for it originated over 7,000 miles or more.
Like, his hair reminds me of Donald Trump. I'm sorry.
Away in Ukraine. On April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear plant suffered the worst nuclear disaster in history. During a botched safety test, a massive power surge caused reactor 4 to explode, releasing a plume of radioactive fallout that drifted across Europe. The immediate blast killed 2 workers, while dozens more lost their lives to acute radiation sickness shortly after trying to contain the fallout. However, by the time they were able to enclose the malfunctioning reactor, it had already spread massive clouds of toxic, radioactive particles across Europe and Asia. Mexico, in theory, should have been far enough from the disaster site to stay unaffected.
So far.
In reality, government corruption and greed turned it into a problem that ordinary Mexicans were forced to live with in their day-to-day lives. You see, radioactive particles from the Chernobyl meltdown contaminated crops and livestock across Europe and Asia, making a significant portion of their food unsafe for consumption. Ireland was among the more heavily affected countries, with thousands of tons of milk in the region becoming radioactive. The Irish government tried to get rid of this contaminated milk by selling it to poorer countries. And after getting rejected by—
Hey, just throw it out. Why in the world are you selling it? How dare you're so mean. So I'm guessing we count as a poor country before too, huh? So, did I drink some radioactive milk when I was a kid? Oh no.
Brazil, they reached an agreement with the Mexican government to sell 40,000 tons of radioactive powdered milk at discounted prices.
Why?
The toxic milk reached Mexico in June 1987 and was then distributed across the country by a state-owned company called Conasupo. It made its way into ordinary households.
Who okayed this? Jail that person.
Where consumers had no idea they were drinking what was essentially poison. The truth finally came out when Navy Vice Admiral Manuel Rodriguez Gordillo commissioned a nuclear physicist to test the milk. And as it turned out, the milk the Mexican government bought from Ireland exceeded 10 times the permitted limits of radioactivity. The government initially tried to suppress the news by accusing the whistleblower of defamation, stripping them of their position, and putting them in prison. But the backlash got bad enough that the government was forced to issue a complete recall by January 1988. Unfortunately, the damage was already done. Over the following decade, the number of children suffering from cancer skyrocketed drastically. Many endured life-altering deformities, while countless others lost their lives because of it. Even those who survived the initial radiation poisoning now face a higher risk of developing cancer later in life.
No, the government bought it. Jeez,
to me, it seems like
wrong?
January always starts.
Urban exploring and find abandoned area. It reeks of rotten flesh and I almost consider turning back, but I persist. Why aren't you going back, bro? I turn to a corner and look down and am greeted at the sight of dozens of fossilized child corpses. What?
The deeply unsettling Mr. Incredible meme illustrates a person's reaction to discovering something
It's always the
truly
Mr.
horrifying.
Incredible
The
meme.
template is often paired with a caption highlighting disturbing events or shocking facts, and this particular use of it is no different. It summarizes the horrific sight a Chinese explorer named Beanbag Adventures uncovered in February 2022.
Oh wait,
Beanbag's content on
I think I've heard about this before.
Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, revolved around him exploring abandoned buildings and showcasing any interesting finds. However, one of these adventures spiraled into a nightmare his viewers could have never imagined. The video started with him entering an abandoned hospital or lab of some kind.
Yeah, it's in Bilibili
It was
too.
extremely run down and appeared to have been vacant for over a decade, if not more. Broken furniture, torn clothes, and glass jars were everywhere.
People who explore abandoned places seriously have a heart of steel. Because who knows, some crazy person or some crazy ghost will come out of the woodwork to claim your life or something.
But what really caught Beanbag's attention weren't these items. He was more drawn to the overpowering smell that was filling the whole building. Curious, he decided to find its source. He followed the paths where the smell grew stronger and eventually reached a strange, dilapidated room with a pool in the middle of it. He looked inside the pool and before showing it to his viewers claimed that it was filled with movie props. The pool was filled with what looked like the remains of dozens of children floating in a mysterious liquid.
They say it looked like dolls, the size of it.
He spent barely a minute inside this room before the smell became too unbearable and he had to run out gagging for air. The horrifying sight left most of his viewers in shock, with many also trying to figure out if any of it was real.
Don't tell me that water is like dead body water. And this person seriously needs to be sanitized because he didn't even wear any protective gear.
But for now, many accepted his movie prop explanation and didn't question it further, especially since the alternative was far too gruesome for most to even contemplate. A lot of the remains also showed few signs of decomposition, making it easier to buy into the prop theory. However, the possibility of these remains being real became impossible to ignore when Beanbag returned to the same location 10 months later. This time, he decided to explore the rest of the building before going back to the pool room. Unfortunately, the other locations proved to be just as disturbing. I can't show most of this on YouTube, but he discovered rooms full of extremely realistic human skeletons, children's toys and masks, and a few glass jars with what looked like human fetuses stored inside them. Things somehow got even worse when he returned to the pool room and found things that weren't there before, like glass jars and children's clothes on the ground.
More
and most
formally.
unsettling, a blue tarp partially covering the pool. This
It's still
showed that someone else had
ongoing.
been in that room in the last 10 months. But that wasn't even the worst part. The most disturbing part of Beanbag's second visit came when he pointed his camera at the pool. It not only contained more remains than before, but many of the previous ones were also noticeably more decomposed than last time, disproving his movie prop claim. Though, given what people now know about the situation, it seemed he called them movie props just so he could feign ignorance in case he ever got into trouble.
Yeah,
it also helped
censor.
in keeping the videos from getting removed from the platform. Put simply, Beanbag and now most of his audience suspected that this room was a part of an illegal organ harvesting operation known as a corpse factory. You see,
If it's an organ harvesting facility, won't the organs be a little bit too small? Unless it's for kids, I mean.
China has one of the lowest organ donor rates in the world due to cultural reasons. Yet,
Yeah.
despite this
Let me guess. I don't know the culture there much, but as a Chinese too, it might be tied to the belief of the next life. Like reincarnation. Not the isekai one, but reincarnation into another generation. And losing an organ in this life means that your body isn't whole or complete anymore, so the next life you'll be incomplete too. It's just superstition. It's getting better now. And it's just a guess, yeah.
limitation, the process of actually getting an organ for a transplant is relatively easy as long as you have the money. That's because most of these organs are said to come from China's massive black market, where merchants illegally abduct victims to meet the demand. Some reports also claim that the Chinese government is somehow involved in this operation as well.
Hey, can we even watch this? Hello?
With it allegedly harvesting from minority prisoners that aren't even on death row. Even if the government wasn't involved, Beanbag was putting a target on himself by possibly exposing such a large-scale criminal operation. So, acting clueless was his best bet. But even then, his safety wasn't guaranteed. Fans were worried about his well-being. This concern became even more substantial when Beanbag's Douyin account got terminated out of nowhere shortly after posting the second video. Viewers believed that whoever Beanbag exposed was trying to silence him before the story could spread further. Though, just as they were about to lose hope, Beanbag returned to the internet with new videos. However, the 2 videos of him exploring the hospital were now deleted from his account. Beanbag also kept posting more videos exploring other abandoned buildings and never even brought up the hospital again. If someone was trying to silence him, wouldn't it be easier to make him disappear, or at the very least, keep him off the internet forever? So, what's going on here? Well, the internet has come up with many theories trying to solve this very question.
There's a theory that these are hospital specimens and the ones here are the ones that didn't meet standard requirements. Which, don't throw them like that. Organ harvesting, scary. Will the organs be contaminated though? Don't you need a clean environment for that, like an underground hospital? Scary.
But nearly all of them contain contradictions or details that don't align with the known facts. The most popular of these theories is that the room was used to discard victims after harvesting their organs. But here's the thing. If someone was actually running a massive criminal operation, wouldn't it be much safer for them to hide the evidence in mass graves or use industrial incinerators to cremate the remains?
I know,
especially if the Chinese government was involved, as many suspect. As for his account getting temporarily banned, that could be explained by Douyin simply taking it down due to the excessive gore his videos showed, which is also why he was allowed to return after deleting those videos. Alternatively, some also believe that this room was the trophy room of sorts for a serial killer.
That's
but
a lot.
The sheer number of victims makes that highly unlikely, even if it was a group of multiple killers. Then there's also the possibility that Beanbag faked the whole thing to go viral, or that it was an art project of sorts.
That's a lot.
While he wouldn't be the first one to try something like this, the remains in the pool were way too real to be fabrications. Beanbag would also have to spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to commission such a large quantity of props for both videos, all without getting any real return on his investment. So the remains were most likely real. Unfortunately, there's no way for us to determine how they got there. Beanbag stopped uploading in April 2024 and hasn't returned to the internet since. He also never shared the location of the building, so no one else can investigate it either. And as far as I was able to find, the authorities never looked into this, leaving this whole thing unsolved, possibly forever.
Ew, dirty. Take your leg away. All you did was take a pill, your boss gave it to you for your UTI. You haven't slept in months, you know you'll die, what will happen to your son? First things first, you just take a pill that your boss gave? Is he a doctor?
This meme recounts the tragic life of Ricard Siagan, a 48-year-old tattoo artist from Philadelphia who lost everything he had in a single year. Ricard had two passions in life, his only son and art. He created music, did photography, and eventually settled into a career as a tattoo artist. He also shared videos of his tattoo work on YouTube quite often, likely just to document his own progress. Every second he wasn't working, he spent with his son. He had a seemingly perfect life, and was still striving to do better for the only person in his life. Unfortunately, this perfect life was ripped away from Ricard in 2015. This was the year he moved to Philadelphia and started working there as a tattoo artist. However, months into his new employment, he contracted a urinary tract infection, or UTI for short. The pain was so severe that it made it impossible for him to work. But since his insurance didn't cover UTIs, he couldn't afford to go to a doctor. With no other option, Ricard spoke to his boss about his illness, hoping for help or at least some guidance. And as it turned out, his boss had also gone through a UTI recently. His boss still had some of the antibiotics his doctor prescribed, which he happily handed over to Ricard.
No. These good kids do not imitate. Even though it's the same illness, you don't take other people's antibiotics. Who knows, their immune system is different than yours.
Ricard was a bit skeptical at first, but a single dose dramatically reduced his pain. He kept taking the antibiotics and was soon well enough to return to work. But before he could celebrate his recovery, Ricard noticed another major health concern.
And he ate a lot of it.
He was experiencing insomnia, making it difficult for him to sleep each night. Unfortunately, that was only the beginning. The insomnia was getting worse with each passing day. 4 months in, and it became severe enough to prevent him from sleeping altogether. None of the treatments he tried worked, and he was rapidly running out of options. So, in January 2016, he uploaded a video asking for the internet's help, titled, "Che Fatal Insomnia Neurotoxin Induce, CNS Seeking Neuroscience Hospital Support or Stem Cell Hope," where he went over all the disturbing details of his condition.
My brain also looking forward to sleep, but the activity of the brain is never calmed down. It's been 4 months since my brain is active. It never sleep. It never want to go down.
4 months.
And when my body asks my brain that I need to rest and sleep, there's no connection, but there is a feedback. There is a really painful feedback, physical feedback and neuron feedback.
Ricard explained his condition as fatal familial insomnia, a devastating neurological disorder that essentially locks the brain in a state of permanent wakefulness. It's caused by a genetic mutation that targets the thalamus, the section of the brain responsible for transitioning the mind from consciousness into sleep. What made the already terrible situation even more tragic was that he was also separated from his son. He had to return to Indonesia due to his mother's hospitalization. But the insomnia now left him bedridden, unable to fly back to his son in Philadelphia. Ricard still wanted to do everything in his power to survive for his son, but the constant unbearable pain was also sapping away his will to live.
I need life. I have my sons in Philadelphia now. I left him. I have no choice. Because I don't want to leave him. I need life. I need to survive. I don't want him to lose me. I don't want to lose him.
From there, Ricard kept posting updates on his condition, and even shows what happens anytime he tried to sleep. But here's the
what if his son saw this? That would be so painful.
Ricard wasn't suffering from fatal familial insomnia, because that disease is genetic. It's not something someone can just contract out of nowhere, and no one in his family had this prior to him. Instead, Ricard's neurological issues were the side effects of ciprofloxacin, the antibiotic Ricard took from his boss for his UTI. Ciprofloxacin falls under a type of drug known as fluoroquinolones, and they are incredibly dangerous. Taking them without proper precaution can cause total neurological degradation. Unfortunately, even after knowing what it was, Ricard couldn't do anything, and his condition was getting worse with each passing day.
Can't you, go to a doctor or something, please? If I'm not mistaken, you can treat UTI a little bit by drinking a lot of water.
He was starting to get delirious and began posting rants that made little sense.
But he has insomnia now.
A theory. It's a practice. So the world that created by the system.
Without sleep, the cells in his body were also starting to die, leaving him even more immobilized than before. He received some hope from a doctor in Beijing who offered a cutting-edge procedure that had previously worked for one patient. However, the procedure's cost was beyond what Ricard could afford.
Again.
And while he did set up a fundraiser, the donations never reached the required amount. And after struggling with his condition for over a year, Ricard sadly passed away on the 6th of December 2016 in Indonesia.
He's only 48. Don't take other people's antibiotics, please.
The traumatized Mr. Incredible in this instance is a reference to the death of Isaiah Fitzgerald, an 18-year-old teen from Missouri who lost everything due to an internet argument. The incident happened on April 25th, 2023, when a guy named Tanner Watkins uploaded a new profile picture on Facebook with his girlfriend, to which Isaiah reacted with a laughing reaction. The two were friends on Facebook, but it's unclear how close they were. Regardless of their connection, Tanner did not take kindly to Isaiah's reaction and called him out in the post's comments. Their discussion quickly divulged into an argument and ended with the two agreeing to meet each other in person to settle things.
Why?
The vast majority of internet arguments usually end here, with both sides moving on with their lives. However, both Tanner and Isaiah were serious about this confrontation.
Like, why?
After agreeing on the
just be like, ghost him and run away.
Time, they met up at the Rotary Park in Sykeston. And unfortunately, neither side was open to a discussion. As soon as they got close to each other, both opened fire from their cars. Isaiah was fatally shot seconds after the shootout started and passed away before help could arrive. The 18-year-old girl Isaiah brought with him also received life-threatening injuries. Fortunately, she managed to pull through after multiple surgeries.
Why is having a gun legal there? Tell me. It's so dangerous.
As for Tanner, he somehow managed to avoid conviction for the death of Isaiah, though he was eventually sentenced to 7 years in prison for an unrelated shooting in 2025.
Only 7 years and it's another chaos. He wasn't even accountable for the other one. I look so smug. It's annoying. It's annoying me. What a lovely day. I used this bottle of Tylenol to relieve post-birth discomfort. It oddly smells like almond.
This meme is about a deadly attack that happened in Chicago in 1982 regarding Tylenol pain relief capsules. On the morning of September 29, a 12-year-old girl named Mary Kellerman took a capsule of extra-strength Tylenol to soothe a sore throat.
Extra strength for a sore throat!
She collapsed and passed away shortly after. That same day, a 27-year-old postal worker named Adam Janis also took Tylenol for his headache. Seconds later, he suffered what appeared to be a heart attack and tragically passed away. While his family gathered to mourn his death, his brother Stanley and sister-in-law Teresa each took Tylenol from the same bottle Adam had used. Within hours, those two were dead as well. By the time the connection was made, 3 more people, including 27-year-old Mary Reiner, 31-year-old Mary McFarland, and 35-year-old Paula Prince had also lost their lives.
What is going
Testing
on?
revealed that the Tylenol capsules they had consumed were laced with potassium cyanide, one of the deadliest poisons in the world.
Cyanide?
And since the victims were spread across different suburbs, investigators quickly realized this wasn't a manufacturing error. Someone had gone into local grocery stores and pharmacies, pulled bottles off the shelves, laced the capsules with poison, and put them back to be purchased by unsuspecting strangers.
Moral of the story, if you see this package looks opened by someone else, do not buy it. One time my dad bought a medicine cream and the packaging looks absolutely mushed. We immediately told him to return it or change it. Thankfully they let him change it, or not I'm gonna be so mad.
Investigators had no way of knowing how many other poison bottles were still on the shelf. So, in an unprecedented move, the makers of Tylenol, Johnson & Johnson, stepped forward. They issued a nationwide recall of approximately 31 million bottles, a value of over $100 million at the time. Authorities also urged the public not to take any Tylenol product, and for good reason. In the early 1980s, over-the-counter medicine was sold in simple bottles with easy-to-open caps. There were no plastic neck seals, no foil liners, and no tamper-evidence stickers. The realization that a complete stranger could turn a common household item into a weapon of mass murder changed this mindset overnight. In response to the tragedy, the FDA introduced stringent new regulations. Within 6 months, Tylenol returned to shelves in the first-ever triple seal packaging. This included a glued outer box, a plastic wrap around the cap, and a foil seal over the mouth of the bottle.
Thankfully.
However, even this was not a perfect solution. In the months and years following the attack, police stations across the US were flooded with hundreds of copycat reports. And while many of these were hoaxes, some turned out to be legit. Like in 1986, when 23-year-old Diane Ellsroth died after taking a Tylenol capsule laced with cyanide in New York. That same year, another medication named Excedrin was targeted in Washington state, leading to 2 more deaths. These attacks forced the pharma industry to evolve this packaging further and make poisoning more difficult. However, while the attack led to an overall positive change, the original 7 victims never received the justice they deserved. Despite a massive investigation, a $100,000 reward for information, and several suspects, no one was ever charged with the actual murders. One of the suspects, named James Lewis, actually contacted Johnson & Johnson, claiming he would stop the killings if they sent him $1 million in ransom. But investigation revealed that he had nothing to do with the actual attack. He was just trying to take advantage of an already tragic situation. The most popular theory is that this attack was carried out by one of Johnson & Johnson's competitors to ruin their reputation. Which makes a lot of sense, considering Tylenol's market share dropped from 35% to 8% following the incident. That said, it could still have been the work of a deranged serial killer intent on claiming as many lives as possible. Unfortunately, investigators found no solid clues like fingerprints or CCTV footage that could help us confirm or deny these theories.
Not even one, seriously? Not even a single witness on anything? Whoever did that is seriously some psychopath.